This is a rough little video in the shed here. I just wanted to do a bit of a follow-up. It's got some people asking about how I did the wiring to make this Acerbis headlight work, as it's a DC operated headlight. You can see it works here. It's DC operated, but the beta 2-strokes run from standard AC output for the stator, so you can't run the existing wiring for the headlight, which means you would normally have to just have it on a switch straight to the battery and then potentially leave the headlight on with the bike off and run your battery flat and all that sort of stuff. So that is an option, but I wanted to go with a different approach. So I sent the stator to a mob in Victoria. They're called Motorcycle Rewind Bros, BROS. I might chuck a picture of theirs in the clip once I edit it. But yeah, they've converted the stator for DC output, and they gave me a recommendation on a rectifier regulator to use after that change for DC. And so basically we got DC charging to the battery and DC output to the rest of the electrical system, which means I can use the wiring in the bike after some modifications for the headlight. I did change it, so I've got an aftermarket MX Store headlight switch, just on and off switch. And then I've got another on and off switch for the ignition now. So if I flip that switch, you can see the ignition comes on. And then you've also got a headlight switch, so you can have that on or off as well. So the bike will crank with the ignition off, but it won't start. And I've got it so if the bike's running and you turn the ignition off, it kills the engine, stops the engine straight away. And that's mainly so you don't run the battery flat, and so the oil injection keeps working. So you got to wire it up so if the ignition goes off, the bike shuts off. So I've got another relay to do that, but I'll show you a bit of a wiring diagram here, and you can pause it on here or screenshot it or whatever you want to do, but there's a bit of a description on how it all works. And if it'll focus, it's got the regulator rectifier number SH640D-12. That's the regulator that Rewind Bros recommended to me and sold to me, and it's worked great. But yeah, so you got basically 2 fuses that I had to put in, 2 relays, and there's bits of descriptions there, but yeah, it all works perfectly, no issues. Yeah, running a DC setup. So I'll show you what you end up with, what I ended up with under the seat. So I end up with a relay here and some extra wiring connectors. I believe these ones are for they're for charging straight from the new rectifier. And then there'll be a couple fuses tucked in under here as well, just some inline blade fuses. And then the other relay I've got, which is a negative switching relay. It's up under there behind the headlight, and that one's to make sure the engine turns off if you turn the ignition off or if you hit the kill switch. Both of those will turn the engine off. So yeah. Any questions, let me know. I'll try and help you out. But yeah, Rewind Brothers, they'll sort you out with your stator and get you sorted with what rectifier you need to use, and then the rest of the wiring is up to you, or get a mechanic to do it, bike mechanic. But yeah, she's all pretty good. Plenty of juice now to power that headlight. So the issue with running your headlight, that was one of the big issues. If you run your headlight straight off the battery with a switch, there's not actually enough charge going to the battery with the standard setup to run that headlight, I found. Because the way the AC stator worked, it basically put most of its power into running all your electrical system, and then whatever was left over after that went to charging your battery, which isn't really that good. But with this new system, how the stator works, it puts all of the stator charging power straight to your battery. So all the charging power straight to your battery, and then you run all your electrics off the battery after that. So you get a lot better charging power this way. Yeah, so just thought I'd clarify a couple things at the end of the video here. For it to work, you need to have two different types of relays. You need to have a normally open relay and a normally closed relay. And you need to have those two different types. So when you turn the ignition switch off, this normally closed relay will basically be the same as pushing a stop switch. So turn your ignition switch off, and the normally closed relay will then close itself with no power and send the negative impulse to your ignition system to turn the engine off. And that's really important, because if it doesn't turn the engine off and you've turned the ignition off by accident, the bike will still run, but you'll have no thermofan, no oil pump, which is pretty important. So you need to have that normally closed relay so it sends that stop switch signal to your CDI. Now, also, that's not on this diagram, I was using the high-low switch that was factory on the bike, the high-low headlight switch, as the ignition switch, but I've since changed that and put it on the right-hand side of the handlebars, and it's just a standard on-off switch now, and I've gotten rid of all the factory switches. And then but you could use a key barrel if you wanted to go to that extent and put it somewhere, or you could just use the high-low switch as your ignition switch. So with this system, you turn the ignition on and all this stuff works. So your headlight would come on automatically just by turning your ignition on. So I went a step further and put a separate switch in. So with the ignition on, only with the ignition on, so it gets its power from the ignition, you've got a separate switch for your headlight, and that's on the left-hand side of the handlebars. So if you want to go that extra step and have it be able to turn the headlight on and off, you got to put an extra switch just for your headlight. Otherwise, the diagrams pretty smick. It all works. Yeah, any questions, leave a comment. Cheers, guys.